Got a dream in a tear last night, watched the world fade out of sight. Seen the ghosts of time preside, eagles soared and falcons cried. Sleeping phoenix on a rise. Abundance and strange the skies. Hello, and welcome to Phoenix Rising. Well, it was really a very special weekend. It was the Rave New Year, and of course I want to again say to all of you that, this is really an important time to really live life as yourself, to see what that experiment leads to. But it was really very special. We had one of the largest, I think it is, in fact, the largest group of live participants that we've ever had for any event at Jovian. And it was really exciting to see so many people from all over the world being involved in the knowledge. It was really remarkable. And you can still, by the way, both at the Jovian website and on my Facebook page, you can still download the Rave New Year analysis, and you can also download a print version. So if you haven't already heard it or read it, please take advantage of it and take a look and see what the program is going to bring us for this year. I mean, Phoenix Rising is really, the titling of this show is really about our cycle, and our cycle coming to a close, this cross of planning cycle that we're in. Each year, as we move closer to 2027, we have a whole set of constructs that are slowly beginning to decay in the background. This particular year is a classic example, and one that's very special because it's being keyed by a phenomena that really only happens once every 165 years. We're into a very important time in terms of the way in which our whole process is moving. And of course, it comes back to what human design brings. That is, it brings the tools and it brings the knowledge that will allow any individual to find within themselves what they need in order to be able to navigate on this plane successfully. It's all about, where is your inner authority? Where is that thing within you that is always going to be reliable, that is always going to be something that you can trust, that's going to allow you to live your life correctly and to be able to flower in that process? This is really the time for that, the beginning of this new cycle, to get into that experiment of bypassing your mind, getting away from not self-conditioning and getting to the root of what it is to be you so that you can see that emerge. It's also an interesting week for me because at the end of this week, on Friday, I'm going to be in Barcelona in Spain. And I'm really looking forward to that. I haven't taught in Barcelona in a very long time. It's a beautiful city. And for those of you that are in that area, it would be wonderful to see you. So I hope I get a chance to. And of course, the Radical Transformation Tours will continue. Anyway, in terms of continuing, let's get on with the show. Black man on violent case, wonderful face, full of light. Hello, and welcome to the stages that open the new cycle. I thought it would be something that could be of value to you to really understand that it's not just simply that we have stages that lead up to the end of the cycle. We have 64 stages in the year, and each of those 64 stages broken down into their 6 basic components as we move in that sense. The sun moves through the lines. A rave day, in that sense, is the amount of time it takes the sun to move through a single line, nearly the 24 hours. And it's something to grasp about what it means from the moment that we enter into the 41-1, this process, this progression that takes place as we move from stage to stage. The 41 is really a building up of, or the foundation for the building up of pressure. Actually, the pressure begins even before. With the 54 and the 60, you'll notice that as we get to the close of a cycle and we begin to enter into the cycle itself, that everything is about pressure. Everything is about pressure, and it's about the root. Now, think about the root center. In a human being, in a Rave chart, if you've got an undefined root center, the not-self theme of that undefined root center is always being in a hurry, being under pressure, being pushed, feeling like that you have to rush and race. Think about all the people on this planet now, all the pressure that's around. This pressure of the 41 that's going to move into the first stage, the 19. Think about the pressure and the way in which the not-self world's reacting to that pressure. They really feel it. Oh, I got to do it now. I got to get this. I got to do that. I have to have it now. And, there's all this. I've got to make a difference this year. I've got to live out something else. Ooh. Take a deep breath. Slow down. It's pressure. And of course, the real pressure begins with the 19th gate. The 19th gate is so profound in the way it impacts humanity. It's a gate, the gate of approach, one of the four ways. It's a gate of need. It's the pressure to need resources, food, shelter, to need to have a stable bond with the other, a stable community, to be able to have the spiritual glue that can hold you together in this life, to find your tribe, to find your community. All of that pressure is in the 19. All of it. And as it comes to the surface in the not self, it is simply this pressure to need. Don't get carried away. This is the way the cycle opens. It says, yes, there's pressure. There are things that need to be done. There's all these things that are going to be there. After all, if you go through the wheel and you read all the gates, you see the unfolding of the program. It's not about what it does to the world around you, because it will put everyone under pressure. It's about how you accommodate that, how you deal with that as yourself. If you operate correctly as yourself, you're going to be able to navigate through any weather. And it's not to say that this pressure cannot be of value to you, but it's of value to you only when you're correct. It's what's there. And so this week, as we step into the 19th gate and we begin this stage in the opening of the cycle, watch all the pressure released in the beings around you. You will see it, this sense that they really are under the gun. Well, you're not. You're not. Everything is really okay. Just live your life as yourself, and you'll see. Hello, welcome to your weekly neutrino forecast, and this week we begin with the sun in the 19th gate and the earth in the 33rd gate. And as I spoke earlier, this time of the sun in the 19th gate is very important to understand. There's all these pressures on you in terms of what you think you need. Don't let those pressures that are conditioning forces then become what your mind is occupied with. And out of that, you decide that you need this or that, and you really miss what is important for you in the terms of the resources that you're looking for in those needs that are moving you. Also to see that in the middle of the week, we're going to have this shift into the sun into the 13th gate and the earth into the 7th gate. And we're obviously moving into what are Sphinx gates, or gates that are part of the cross of the Sphinx, all about direction. And the 13th gate becomes the second stage as we open up into this new cycle. And that 13th gate is the fellowship of man. It is, in essence, at its foundation, about empathy. One of the most important things to remember about starting a cycle is remembering that it's important to be open. It's important to take things in from the others, because in that may be the very things that you need that are going to be able to fulfill the possibilities of this cycle coming up. But the real theme of this week is the definition that is there from the North Node and Saturn. The North Node in the 10 and Saturn in the 57. And Venus later in the week is also going to go into the 10th gate. The 1057 is the channel of perfected form. The 57th gate is a gate of intuition. And the 10th gate is the great gate of behavior. And if you look at the 1057, it is part of the 4-gate system called integration. It is the backbone of our individuality and our deepest survival mechanism. The 1057 is known as perfected form. And one of the things to recognize about this week is that there's going to be a tremendous amount of conditioning of beings in terms of how they think they should behave in certain situations in order to be able to survive in that sense. A lot of people are going to be conditioned into behavioral activity at this point. Think about this new cycle, people trying to get into something that feels right for them and entering into something in which the behavioral pattern required of them is very different from what's natural to them, but one that they take on because of this conditioning. When the conditioning goes away, the wheel is always turning. The moment the conditioning goes away, they're in a situation in which they are really helpless. And in a situation in which their behavioral mode that was working for them is suddenly going to begin to deteriorate. It's also important to understand something about any time that there's a definition that is purely individual. It brings melancholy into the world. Individual definition is by its very nature a binary between melancholy and creativity. But for the not self, the negative aspect, the melancholy, the sadness, is something that can be very uncomfortable without it leading to the necessary creative outlet to bring balance to that process. In other words, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be, depressive in this week because of that very energy, and it'll be reversed. They'll be concerned about their survival. They'll be concerned that they don't know how to act in the world in order to make it. In other words, the not self is always going to be influenced in a negative way by the very program that's conditioning it. It's the nature of the world. It's something to understand. It's why I bring you the neutrino forecast. We're not here to be slaves of the weather. We're not. We're here to operate as ourselves, uniquely, through our own authority. And when you do that, this weather truly is just the background movie. It's the pleasure. It's what you get to move through. So move through it as yourself and have a good week. Fear. Fear is everything, isn't it? When you look at human beings, if you want to look at something in which you see saturation, you can see it in fear. It's everywhere. It's the way in which the mind controls beings. It's the way in which it controls the not self. It fills it full of all of those fears that arise out of its openness, out of its conditioning. And those fears end up being the bedrock upon which the mental decisions are made that leads to the confusion in life. It's all about fear. And when you look at the body graph, you see that we have 3 centers, awareness centers, that are fear centers. We have the primary fears that are there in the splenic center. We have this nervousness that's there in the emotional frequency, but in the ajna center, where we understand the sense of what we call mind, the ajna center is about anxiety. Anxiety. There is so much mental anxiety. There is so much mental fear in humanity. It's enormous. And you really need to understand the way in which your mind is designed to operate when you're not self. You look at your chart, look at anything that's open in your chart. Your mind is going to use that against you. If you have an open splenic center, you hold on to things that aren't good for you. That's the not self theme, and the mind is going to use that with you. Somebody tells you, well, you should better get rid of that, and you go, no, I can't. I have to hold on to that thing, because if I don't, I'm afraid. Because I'll lose this, or I'll miss that, or I won't have this, or whatever the case may be. The decision-making of the not-self mind is ruled by its anxieties, its deep fears. Now you see, there's nothing wrong with fear in and of itself. Without fear, there is no intelligence. But it is not about fear ruling your life in terms of how you make a decision. Afraid to say yes, afraid to say no. It isn't about your mind. It's never about your mind. And you see, when you begin to make decisions through your strategy and authority, through what is your form and principle, you leave all that behind. Those anxieties, those fears, they grow and they grow and they grow with the dysfunction of the personality's life. If you turn that around, it all changes. We're not here to be lost in our fears. You're not here to be manipulated by fear. You're not. Trust in your strategy and authority. Learn to see that you can trust yourself without fear. And in that trust, without fear, well, you can learn to love yourself. It's quite a thing.
Caught a dream in a tear last night, watched the world fade out of sight. Seen the ghosts of time preside, eagles soared and falcons cried. Sleeping phoenix on the rise. Abundance and strange